Hello everybody, welcome back again to Tracy Di Bartolo, Thermomix consultant here in my lovely kitchen. I do love my kitchen and I do love playing with my Thermomix. It actually inspires me to do things that I probably would not ever try. So I hope that there are some people out there at the moment or that you are watching afterwards on replay. Just always give me a hi. Comments, of course, are always welcome. I like to know who's watching me and whether you find it interesting or not. And even give me some suggestions of what you'd like me to do in the future, because I kind of just make it up as you do. Okay, so today I am making vegetarian sausage rolls. Now this is a recipe that has been around for as long as I've owned a Thermomix, which is back in 2015. It was in the basic cookbook of that machine when I got it, and it's also still in the basic cookbook with the TM6s. So there it is. And when I first saw this recipe, I thought, oh, vegetarian sausage rolls, that looks interesting. I'll just try that. And I was new to Thermomix and I wasn't used to reading through the list of ingredients and getting it in my head. So as I was starting to put things in, I'm thinking, these are kind of really weird ingredients. I thought so at least. So anyway, keep an eye out for the ingredients and let me know what you think. So here we are. Start cooking. As always, Thermomix will tell you exactly what you need to do. It's telling me to put on the oven at 200 degrees, and it's also telling me to line a baking tray with paper. Now, I actually don't use baking paper if I can help it. I mean, I do use it, but in small quantities, because I have these amazing rose gold trays and they come with, well, you can purchase the liners that go with them. So they're a silicone liner, fantastic. And then you just wipe them clean afterwards. So no waste, which is the whole environmentally conscious thing, which is great. All right, so first thing it asks me to put in is a brown onion, about 180 grams. The scales don't come on, so it's obviously not that important whether it's a bit under or a bit over. So I did pre-weigh them and they're about 160 grams. That's fine. And then we're just going to chop those very quickly for 3 seconds on speed 5. So that's a big time saver right there. 3 seconds to chop onions. That's pretty awesome, I think. So there, that is, it makes short work of the chopping of the onions, does it not? Yes, it does. Just don't stick your head into the bowl because they still smell like onions and they will make you cry if you get too close to them. But I can get by without crying anymore. All right, so now we're going to add some oregano. And in the hints and tips in the book, it actually says you can mix up the dried herbs. So if you've just got the Italian herb mix or you just want dried parsley or something like that, it's no biggie. You just change it to whatever you want to. All right, 100 grams of walnuts. So walnut alert, nut alert. They're vegetarian sausage rolls, but there are nuts in them, so be aware if anyone's got a nut allergy. And it doesn't actually have a substitution for walnuts. So if anybody can think of a substitution for walnuts in this recipe, put it in the comments, because I like to learn also, if you can think of anything. Okay, next thing is 90 grams of rolled oats. Here we go. See what I mean about the ingredients? And pop the lid on, and we're just going to bring that together on speed 6 for 3 seconds. So 6 seconds so far, not too bad. All right, I'll just show you what that looks like. So it's kind of bringing it up into a bit of a mix, and I will just give it a quick wipe down like that. Now you might notice that I'm using a different spatula to the normal spatula, but these are available on the Mix shop. You can get them in green or red or grey, and they're the Tavolo brand, which is a really beautiful brand. And I love them because they're just a bit longer and a bit slimmer. I find them, it just suits some of the things that I do. All right, 3 eggs. In they go. And 100 150 grams of feta cheese, which is in the fridge, of course. Okay, so I tend to, I've got this nifty little container, which I just love, and basically is a brine in there, and you can then just lift that up and out it comes. So it keeps the feta fresh. I use a lot of feta, but then times go by and I don't use much at all. Okay, so I'm going to pop 150 grams in. That's 160, that's okay. And then you just put that back down there and it keeps it. And I even wash the container out, and if I buy a different type of feta from the deli department, then I chop it up and I put it in here and I make up fresh brine each time, and it just works a treat. So that's a little helpful hint for if you find that your feta goes off before you get to use it. Okay, so I've gone about 10 grams over there. Hopefully that's not going to be a big deal. The next ingredient says tamari or soy sauce. Now, I'm just putting soy sauce in because I figure that I use tamari if it needs to be gluten-free. My pastry is not gluten-free, so I'm just putting soy sauce in. And then 50 grams of breadcrumbs, which are also not gluten-free. So in they go, and those are my own breadcrumbs. So whenever you get to the end of a loaf and it's not much good for anything, like it's not fresh anymore, or there's not really enough there to toast, pop it in your Thermomix and just turbo it for a couple of seconds. Comes into beautiful breadcrumbs in a container in the freezer, and then whenever you need it, out they come. All right, next, lid. I do more talking than actually cooking, I know, but still, there you are. 20 seconds, so a bit longer, on speed 5. Right. While that's doing that, what has Jan said? Hi Jan. Pumpkin seeds or sunflower seeds as a substitute. Yeah, maybe. So, I guess you could. I would probably think, or you could do a combination of the both. I don't know. Maybe I might have to experiment. But that is a good suggestion. Thank you. So for those people who missed it before, I was asking whether or not there was something else that you could use instead of walnuts if you have a walnut allergy or intolerance. Okay, so effectively, this is the mixture, like so. I'm going to just put it into a clear sort of container so you can see. And it's quite a wet-ish sort of mixture. And what I have found from experience is I make this and then I let it stand for a little bit. So, and I just find that it thickens up with standing, and it makes it easier when we do the next step, which I will show you. So that is the mixture in here, okay? So it's not too bad, it's not too wet, but I just like to let it thicken up a little bit with standing, or pop it in the fridge and get it cold. So I'm going to set that aside because I did a batch yesterday, of course, in advance, and this is the batch from yesterday, and you can see how it's thickened. What I think happens is the rolled oats probably swell, take up a bit of the moisture, and I find that this is much easier to work with. Okay, so a couple of hints that I found from making these. Once we make this batch, if you like, this is the filling, the instructions say to put 1/6 of the filling into the already prepared pastry. So what works for me is I actually portion this out straight away, put it into little bowls or whatever you want, and then cover it and pop it in the fridge to stand. And I've worked out that the filling, the 6 portions, it's about 110 grams per portion. What I'll do is I'll put this up on my Facebook page afterwards, just in case you can't remember the numbers, that's okay. So portion out your filling, pop it away, let it stand. All right, word about pastry. So the great thing about this recipe is it tells you just to use puff pastry, frozen puff pastry from wherever it is that you buy it. And you just need 3 pieces of the paste of these frozen. And then you cut each piece into half. So effectively you're working with 6 different bits of pastry. Now, I have done that in the past and it's worked out fine. But today I thought that I would actually make my own pastry. And I've used the recipe from the Cornish pasties. So you can go back and look at my Facebook Lives that I've done with the Cornish pasty recipe. And if you make a full batch as it is in the recipe, it will actually be enough to make 2 lots of these vegetarian rolls. So if you don't want to make 2 lots, then just halve that pastry recipe. And again, I also portion off the pastry so that I've got smaller bits that I'm dealing with. And I also know that I don't get to the end of it and all my, everything's out of kilter. So I've got exactly the right amount of pastry, exactly the right amount of filling to go ahead. So I've worked out that it's about 160 grams of pastry that you need to roll it out. So I've started, just so I can show you, started rolling out this piece on my floured silicone mat. And then ultimately, it will turn out, this is my half piece that is left over. I'll put that down there for you. All right, so when I'm rolling out my pastry, I just have got a piece of cut out baking paper. So I've used this yesterday and I'm going to use it again today because I just put it over the pastry and roll it out into that square. So that's about equivalent to what a puff pastry sheet would be like. And then you cut the pastry in half, as I've done here. And this is what we're going to use to assemble the sausage rolls. I'm just going to move my beautiful baby just back a little bit now that we've finished with that. Okay, so using the straight part, the long part, not the short edge of your pastry, the long part of your pastry, you get that 1/6 portion. And we just place it along the pastry, like so. And you can see why it's important to portion it out, because it's hard to know when you're putting it out on the pastry like this, how much you actually need. So if you've pre-portioned it, it helps. Okay, and then we just, like so, make it a beautiful little line. There we are. And this is something that I learnt from this little trick I'm about to do next. I learnt this from one of my colleagues. I was always trying to pick up the pastry and roll the pastry, and I find that it gets all over my fingers. If you use the mat to roll, it works so much better. So you roll and roll again and roll again. Voila, look at that, beautiful. And with a little plastic cutter, remember to only use plastic if you're using it on a silicone mat. I just trim up the edge just a tiny little bit so that it's nice and neat. Press it down flat and then onto the tray. Hopefully you'll be able to see that. I just lift it up, pop it onto the tray. And the great thing about these little silicone mats that sit inside the tray, they've actually got measurements along all of the edges. So I know from doing it before, I need about 7 centimeters. So then I cut it, move it along, another 7, move it along, and another 7. And that way I will end up with 4 evenly sized sausage rolls. Yay, winning. And then the recipe says to use milk just to put it on the top. I actually prefer egg. It just gives it a much nicer, beautiful browned surface. So a little bit of egg on top, like so. And final touch is just a little sprinkle of sesame seeds, provided you don't have a sesame allergy, which I'm told is one of the biggest allergies around. surprisingly. Okay, but we are not allergic to sesame, so that's fine. And there we go. So you just repeat that process, roll out your pastry into a square like that, cut your pastry, and then use each of those to make your sausage rolls. So there, that is what they look like uncooked. And because I like to show people the finished product, I have some here that I will uncover. That is what they look like when they are cooked. So I'm going to just store these in the fridge, and if they don't get used in time, then I can just pop them in the freezer and put them into the maybe about 100-degree oven just to warm through slightly. Or the book tells me that you can actually freeze the uncooked ones. So get everything ready and just freeze them in layers so that they don't stick. Maybe freeze them flat and then put them into a container to store, and you can bake them from, I think thaw them out first and then bake them. But everything is in your basic cookbook. It tells you all of those instructions. So that's it. I will now proceed to go on with the rest of my pastry and obviously the rest of my mix that I've just made up, and I'll make another batch. It makes 24 if I use those sizings. So, and they're really yummy. They're just amazing. I served them up a few months ago when I had some visitors and thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to feed them? Oh, I know, I've got frozen pastry. Whip this up in 30 seconds. Bang, 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 bang. Chuck them in the oven for 20 minutes on 200. Out they came. They got just demolished, like they just disappeared. And they could not believe that A, they weren't meat. They didn't believe it. They just thought it was sausage mince. And B, when I told them what the ingredients were, they're like, wow, that doesn't make sense. But there you go. That's why we have recipe developers that get paid the big bucks, I think, to come up with these amazing things. So that's it from me. Bye for now. See you on screen when I see you next. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.